Congress is back to work this week, which means maybe the House of Representatives will actually and finally pass the $1,400 stimulus check bill. The bill is then expected to go directly to the Senate. The Senate, however, is not expected to vote on this bill any earlier than the beginning of March, and quite frankly, we expect them to take it through the middle of March to actually get this bill done. There have been rumors that maybe the Senate will vote earlier. This is based in the belief that maybe, just maybe, the Senate will just be able to entirely skip committee hearings and just slam dunk the bill. While that's possible, I think there's less than a 20% chance of that happening. Of course, in the meantime, we have Republicans blaming Democrats for spending too much money, and Democrats are saying we're barely spending enough money. And of course, everybody's looking at Joe Manchin, the one Democrat that people think could ruin the entire stimulus package for everyone. Though Joe Manchin has stepped back and sort of walked back his antagonism of the stimulus checks, and so the odds are he's just going to roll over and vote for it. I think it would be pretty unpopular for Joe Manchin in his next election to vote against Democrats in this one. We'll see. In the meantime, everyone is also looking at the Senate parliamentarian to see if the $15 per hour minimum wage will go through. If the $15 minimum wage is considered to be a fair budget measure by the parliamentarian, then Joe Manchin will vote for the $15 minimum wage. That does leave Kyrsten Sinema as a potential no vote, but we'll see if she ends up getting convinced to vote for the bill anyway. Now, in the meantime, I have also surveyed everyone in my Discord group, for all of those of you who have been on within the last couple hours here, what questions you have regarding stimulus. If you want to join that group, make sure to just go to metkevin.com/discord. It's totally free, and you can ask all the questions you'd like there. So let's get into the Q&A. There are a lot of questions that you all have about stimulus, so we're going to talk about everything from checks to unemployment and more. I do quickly want to bring up, though, this right here. This is my BlockFi account. I just put money into this account on Friday, and I'm not trying to brag or show it. It just is what it is, okay? It is what it is. What I want to show you, though, is in 2 days, BlockFi on my cryptocurrency, my Bitcoin, because that's all on Bitcoin, has paid me $112.80 in interest. That's more than 7% in interest that they're paying me on the Bitcoin I have with them. So if you have not yet signed up for BlockFi, I don't know what you're waiting for. It is a variable rate, so it could go up or down. But if you sign up for BlockFi by going to metkevin.com/BF, like boyfriend, but BlockFi, metkevin.com/BF, and deposit money, they will give you up to $250 totally for free, up to $250 totally for free if you make or open an account with BlockFi, and they'll pay you interest on your cryptocurrency, whatever you have. Go to metkevin.com/BF. Okay, let's do the Q&A. So first, where is the $200 Social Security boost Biden promised, the SSI boost? It's nowhere to be seen. It's not in this bill. Biden mentioned in his economic plan that there was a plan to send $200 checks or sort of boost Social Security payments by $200 per month. We have not seen that. It's not part of this bill. Student loan forgiveness. Biden wants $10K. He is vastly opposed to $50,000. However, $10K as sort of a forgiveness of student loan debt is not in this bill. There is also no EV tax credit in this bill, though there are some infrastructure funds earmarked for certain cities and states. Busy Tales says their grandmother passed away in February. Will she get a check if her account is still open? First of all, sorry for your loss, and the answer is possibly. It depends how quickly the IRS and Treasury Department update their logs, so it is possible that a check could be deposited into her account. Technically, though, that money could get clawed back by the government, so just be aware of that. Technically, you aren't supposed to keep that money. For the targeted EIDL, if you started a business in 2019, can you still apply, especially if you started towards the November-December period of 2019? How are you going to compare your numbers, so to speak, to 2020? So the rule for targeted EIDLs is that you actually can compare January and February 2020 income to parts of later 2020. You just have to compare 8-week periods to compare your income. In that case, it would work. Do dependents get stimulus checks? The answer to this is no. Parents get the stimulus checks. So yes, all dependents who are in sort of the same filing, the same tax filing of people who are eligible for the stimulus checks, those dependents will get checks of $1,400. But the checks don't go to those dependents. They go to the people who filed. So technically, mom and dad get the checks for all dependents, for all dependent children. And then if there are adult dependents, well, then the main filers, they get the check. So the person who files as an independent filer whether they're single, head of household, or married filing jointly, but they are filing and they're not getting claimed by anybody else as a dependent, they get all the checks. If they have dependents, then they will get $1,400 for each dependent, no matter what the age is for that dependent. Now, this is a little tricky for college students. So if you're a college student, do you get a check? Well, it depends. If you file a loan and you are not claimed as a dependent, the answer is yes, you get a $1,400 check as long as you fall within the income criteria. If you're making more than $75,000 as a single college student, first of all, hats off to you. Then obviously your check will get reduced, but if you're making less, you would get your own check. But if you file your own taxes, and you're a dependent claimed by your parents or by somebody else, you don't get a check on your return. And they might not either, so it gets complicated there. If you file your own taxes and you're still claimed as a dependent by somebody else, you don't get a check. And then it's a little blurry as to whether or not they do in that case, since you are filing your own tax return, but you're still being claimed. That's a really blurry position, and you might want to ask your CPA and see, is it worth you filing as a dependent anymore, yet still filing a separate tax return? So double check that. Maybe you end up filing as an independent, but that also has implications for potentially your parents or whoever's claiming you. So check on that. So not 100% clear answer there, but hopefully that gives you some guidance. Now, do airlines get any help? Yes, there is an extension of the Airline Payroll Support Program where airlines will receive up to $14 billion and contractors will receive up to $1 billion as long as they agree to certain restrictions like no stock buybacks or furloughs. Furthermore, if you want to switch to an independent filer, let's say you were a dependent filer in 2020 or 2019 and you want to switch to file as an independent in 2020, should you file sooner rather than later? The answer here is probably yes, because the sooner you file your taxes, the sooner your taxes are likely to be accepted. And if your taxes get accepted before you end up getting checked to see if you're eligible for a stimulus check, then you'll get the stimulus check. Otherwise, you might have to wait until next year when you go file your tax return for 2021. If you made money in 2020, but not in 2019, can you get a check? Well, as long as you made less than the income thresholds, the answer is yeah, totally. Sure. If you made money in 2020, as long as you're under that 75K single, 150 married filing jointly, or the other thresholds, sure. Do people who are locked up get a check? Well, technically, there's nothing in this new bill that says people in prison or jail do not get a stimulus check. So I believe the answer to that is, in this case, yes, you would get a $1,400 check. How do I know if there is still PPP money? Well, all we know right now is that there is, but we don't know how much is left. Mortgage forbearance. For those with Fannie and Freddie Mac loans, you have gotten a 3-month extension up to 15 months of forbearance. For the other programs, I have not heard of additional extensions yet, though they might come. We'll have to stay tuned for that. When will the stimulus check come? Probably between the end of March and mid-April. Here's a question about citizenship. You do not have to be a citizen to get a stimulus check. You do need a social security number, though. If you haven't received any stimulus checks yet, the $1,200 one, the $600 one, you'll be able to claim those on your 2020 tax return. If you don't end up getting the $1,400 check, you can claim that on your 2021 tax return, as long as you're eligible. And if you have questions, you can contact the IRS directly by Googling the IRS Get My Payment portal to log in to see what's going on with your check eligibility, or call 1-800-919-9835. Just be careful, there are a lot of scams, so make sure you're contacting the correct folks. Make sure you're on an official .gov website, and the number I just gave you, you should Google that and make sure it goes to the IRS webpage. It's a good habit to get into. 1-800-919-9835. Keep in mind there are also a ton of scam bots in the comments that are asking you to send Bitcoin to them. These are scams. I will not ask you to WhatsApp me. I will not ask you to send me money. If you want to buy the courses I sell, that is obviously an option at mekevin.teachable.com. But beyond that, I'm not going to ask you for money. On the child tax credit, Lil Spud 11 says they have kids and they usually get a tax refund of about $100. They're worried about taking monthly payments, meaning that they might owe taxes at the end of the year by taking the child tax credit this year. Yeah, so this is an issue, somewhat. Maybe not so much this year, because this year at most you'd only be getting about half of your child tax credit. So you might not have an issue this year because the current child tax credit is a good chunk larger than the old child tax credit. but it could be close. So yeah, you're getting a larger credit. Yeah, you're getting about 6 months on a monthly basis, but you might want to run your tax situation, run your numbers to see if you need to potentially take a little bit of less or take a little bit less money so that way you don't end up owing taxes. Especially when you're this close, you want to make sure you don't end up owing taxes. That is, you're taking too much and then you don't have enough left to cover your tax bill. So you got to be careful about that. And you certainly don't want to end up owing taxes because then you could end up paying penalties. So if you're running it that close where you're getting tax refunds of $100, you might want to rerun your numbers or maybe opt out of getting the monthly payments when that portal opens up in the summer. And then just see what kind of tax refund you get next year and then maybe make an adjustment next year. That's always an option that you can do. Now, can you choose not to take the payments? And the answer to that is yes. For the child tax credit, you can choose not to take them. There'll be a portal this summer that'll give you options. On limits, are there any limits? I don't see limits for child tax credits or the stimulus checks. However, there are child-dependent expense credit limits that do exist, and that's when you get a refund for child-dependent care expenses of up to $4,000 at a 50% rate for one child or up to $8,000 for 2 children or more. That does have a limit. If you haven't filed your 2020 yet, will you be eligible for a stimulus check? You will. They will look at your 2019 check to see if you qualify income-wise. So I guess whether or not you will does depend on what your income was in 2019, but they will look at your 2019 tax return if your 2020 is not available. So if your income plummeted in 2020, you'll either get the check right away if you file your taxes soon enough, or you'll get the check as part of your tax return when you file your 2021 taxes in the spring of 2022. If you made less than $75,000, should you file your 2020 taxes sooner? Well, look, if you made less than $75K in 2019 and you make less than $75K in 2020, there's probably no reason for you to file your taxes any sooner than you ordinarily would. I don't see a particular rush there. It looks like you would be eligible off your 19 or 20. For kids born in 2020, will you get the stimulus check if you filed your 2020 tax return? The answer is yes, as long as you include their social security number. So child born in 2020, they should actually get the $1,200, the $600, and they should get the $1,400. Just make sure when you file your taxes, you include their social security number. How do people who don't need to file a tax return get the check? You need to go to the IRS Get My Payment portal. So again, Google IRS Get My Payment, and then go to the non-filers portion and fill that out. For pandemic unemployment, it is being extended to 74 weeks. There was a question about that. There are currently no plans for a fourth stimulus check. If your income goes up in 2021, will you have to pay back your stimulus check? The answer is no, you do not. Regarding what income line they use, they will use your adjusted gross income to determine if you qualify for a stimulus check. A child born in January of 2021 will get a stimulus check when you file your taxes in 2021. For a monthly tax credit, you'll have to wait until the portal opens in June or July and then apply your child and social security number to start getting your monthly payments for the child tax credit. If a person is in mortgage forbearance on their primary residence, can they still refinance on a rental property? The answer to that is no. You can't be in forbearance for at least 60 days if you are trying to get a new loan. Regarding custodial parents in divorce, the person who gets your stimulus check is the person who claimed that the child on their tax return, not the person who's paying all the bills. So that's obviously something that is a problem for some people. Will capital gains count as income and affect qualifying for the $1,400 stimulus check? So yeah, I mean, the way capital gains are calculated depends if they're long or short term, but yeah, capital gains do end up above the line, so they get calculated in your adjusted gross income. So yeah, if you have a ton of capital gains, like let's say you sold a house and you had like $300,000 in capital gains, yeah, you could end up losing your stimulus check benefit, absolutely. If we've had no issues receiving the past stimulus checks, will we get the stimulus check paid out now, or will we have to wait until 2022 when we file our 2021 taxes? So if you've had no issues in the past, and let's say you filed your 2020 tax return and your income is under the thresholds, you should have no issue with this $1,400 check. It should arrive like the others have. Is the stimulus going to be tied into the 2020 tax return? I made $6K more in 2020, and I would rather hold off doing my taxes if it means I get a bigger check. Yeah, so possibly. I mean, I would just maybe in that case wait a few weeks. Obviously, don't wait past the deadline, which I think is April 15th, but I'll have to check exactly what the deadline is. But yeah, maybe you wait a little bit, especially if you're in that threshold where you're making more than $75,000. Recovery rebate credit. That is the same as the economic impact payment. The recovery rebate credit line is just something on your tax return that lets you claim your economic impact payment if you didn't get it when you were supposed to. If my son was born at the beginning of 2020, do I get all 3 stimulus checks? Yes, you do. Meet Kevin on the child tax credit. Someone who is on SSDI and does not file taxes, are they eligible for the child tax credit? Technically, the answer to this is yes. How exactly this will work, I don't know yet. The Green Act is not part of this stimulus check bill. Then we have Abe asking, how do I submit proof of my self-employment in 2019? Can I use a 1099? So this is complicated. Obviously, you can use a 1099 to evidence that you were self-employed, but usually they're going to want to see your net income, which you generally have to have your taxes for or some kind of statements for. I would ask them. Sometimes, every state is different on this, okay? So, some are going to say, look, we need your Schedule C. Maybe some will say, hey, we could use the statements that you have for now and your 1099s. So it all depends. That is a really good specific question that I would ask your unemployment department. And maybe what you can do in the meantime is literally just send them the 1099, and then if you start getting the money, well, there you go. If you don't start getting the money, then you'll probably get a letter explaining why you haven't gotten money yet and why they need more information. And then give them the more information they need. Okay, folks, those are all the insights I have for Q&A. Thank you so much for submitting questions. If you submitted questions today, hopefully I have answered yours and you found this very helpful. If you did, consider sharing the video. And folks, we'll see you in the next one. Just make sure, don't forget, get your BlockFi account set up. Go to metkevin.com/BF and get your interest. Look at that, $112 rolling in just 2 days. I've only had this for 2 freaking days. It's awesome. Go set that up. All right, folks, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.